Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Elementary. So this week's case ended up being very interesting because it kind of let us learn more about the Yakuza. Not something I'm that familiar with. The whole they kind of, obviously they wear as like a badge of honor, the whole missing finger thing, let you know who they are. But the whole prosthetic thing of so they can kind of hide it in the normal life. Didn't even know you could kind of retire. I mean, the Yakuza isn't like your typical gang. The Yakuza is kind of in a category all their own, just the way they are. I mean, it also kind of fits along with Japanese culture in the sense of just honor and kind of respect being a very big part of the culture and everything. So it seems like that kind of translates over even into that quote unquote gang, which, like I said, they're still kind of different from gangs. They kind of work in a different way. But it's very interesting in this episode because the victim in this episode is Ando. He is a former Yakuza dude who's kind of like a tech whiz and stuff like that. Turns out his pinky was a flash drive, and it's like basically he was working with the U.S. Air Force because they were changing up their... Basically, he broke in there just to test certain things out because basically they were testing out the new system. It's actually kind of interesting, fascinating on that front too, learning that basically a lot of the U.S. men, I would assume this is based on truth, maybe it's 100% lie, but at least within this episode, it's like, oh yeah, man, like the military, the Air Force, when it comes to their missiles and stuff like that, are still running them on like old computers and systems, which makes sense because it's such antiquated technology. It's super hard to hack, so it's hard to really break into it because basically they're trying to upgrade their whole system situation. That's when Ando came in. But now it's like, okay, so Ando's finger is missing, so this might be connected to that. So their missile situation might be compromised. So they basically have to put all the upgrades on halt. It was interesting because you had that General was it Alcevedo? That was very interesting. It's like, okay, so he's like, okay, so Miss Watson, you might want to leave the room. I'm like, what the hell are you going to show them that you need them to read? It's like, that's weird. He's like, and Charlotte's like, seriously, dude, she's a doctor. She's seen plenty of stuff. He looks at it. Okay, you might not have seen. I was like, what is it? Something gruesome? Like, I thought he was talking about something he didn't want his colleagues to see. I thought it was something gruesome or something like that. Not necessarily that he did, but the reason why he wasn't behind this is like, oh, the reason is because he's one of those people that's in a position who likes being treated like a baby. And even Watson's looking at it like, wait, what? So, which is kind of interesting because that's kind of like the stereotype of all big, powerful people that they like being emasculated, they like being taken care of because you live in such a high stress world where you kind of have to be in control of everything. You kind of want to be dominated and just treated and taken care of type of situation. Like saying that's kind of like all big powered people essentially. So as a general, I guess it makes sense. But just all the looks, I wasn't expecting that to be his alibi. I was like, wait, what? Oh, okay. So the case takes some very interesting turns out throughout it because it also deals with these discs, which might be the reason why it's like, oh, maybe there's some valuable information on them or something. So many actors in this kind of look so familiar. For one, the actor who plays the general, I've seen him in stuff before, plenty of stuff. The actor who played Colonel Deakins and the actor who played Eddie. I can't remember what I recognize the actor who plays Eddie from. I feel like it's something fairly recent I've seen him in. He was kind of a bad guy in something. I just can't remember what. I think he was like a dirty cop or something. I don't remember what the case may be, what it was exactly. But what's so fascinating about this case is that Colonel Deakins was actually behind it. And it's like, oh, why were they able to figure out it was her? Because she didn't have a sense of smell. Like, I was like, okay, what is he trying to get across? And then the fact is that she didn't react. I was like, what is that supposed to be? I was like, oh, interesting. Just because that's something that doesn't come up that often. Literally the only person I can never think of, I feel like it's well enough known to know about it is like John Reisinger from Rooster Teeth. It's like the only person I've ever heard of with that situation. I'm not saying it's like super uncommon, which maybe it is, but I mean, it's just kind of interesting to me. That ended up being kind of like the nail in the coffin in her particular case because it's like, oh yeah, you reveal, because it's like, how does that pertain to the case? It's like, oh yeah, because he was cooking like peppers and stuff like that, because the fire was actually started by accident because Ando was cooking, and because she couldn't smell the stove, like she left it on. Like a normal person was like, oh, smelled it, would have turned it off, because the whole point was she wanted Ando's body to be found, the whole missing finger situation, because basically there's discs there that basically there's a company that basically prints money they're the ones that has the recipe to printing money on paper, essentially, which Sherlock's like, it's not really actually paper, but we'll just refer to it as paper just to keep things simple. And it's so fascinating that that's what this is all about. One crime was committed, killing Ando and making it seem like, oh, you were after his finger, gave her the time because it's like, if the systems got upgraded, she wouldn't be able to get to the money like she would want to. I mean, rather get to the recipes like she wants to. It gave her more time to try and search out the other half of the recipe and stuff like that. I was like, that's fascinating. Poor Ando died because he was just he was a cover up to a plan, which is kind of like, that's super depressing. And just super shady on her part. It's kind of interesting that the one who ended up helping her get taken down was another Yakuza. In fact, the same Yakuza who literally in the same episode was like, Shinori was kind of like, yo, I actually wanted him dead. I was actually talking to the higher ups about actually trying to kill him. It's like, you're admitting that? It's like, yeah, because he owed me, like I owed him a debt and he hung it over my face. It was kind of, like I said, learning so many interesting things about Yakuza. In this case, it's like the reason why he helped out wasn't because he was looking for the police like to ignore some things, some criminal stuff he was doing with like bank accounts and stuff like that, and let him kind of be on the list. It's like, no, it's like because she killed a Yakuza, former or not. She killed a Yakuza, and the only one who could kill a Yakuza is another Yakuza. Like I said, there's like this whole, like I said, honor system to it. Because that's actually kind of a thing with Yakuza. It's like apparently like if you pay a certain fee, and you retire with honor, basically you have to like not do any crime. Yakuza actually frown upon it and find out like, well, we let you go and you're out there committing crimes, like, and you're supposed to be like kind of forgiven for all the kind of bad stuff you've done. It's kind of like a clean slate they kind of give you. And it's like, oh, they find out that you've been doing bad, shady stuff. They get super pissed about that. I was like I said, it's so fascinating how that all kind of works out like that. Like I said, it was kind of a very interesting learning experience about all of that, so I really appreciated that aspect of the episode. I even love that one line from Mason, like when him like, oh, it must have been a Yakuza guy, and it's like Joan is like, just because he's Japanese, just because like this is dude's one Yakuza guy and this guy's Japanese doesn't mean that he's without a doubt a Yakuza. And it turns out I was like, oh yeah, that same guy you were saying might not be a Yakuza. It turns out he actually is a Yakuza. I also love that Sherlock was able to piss off Mason being like, oh yeah, if you can't get the job done, I guess I'll go to everyone about it. I was like, I guess like, you know, one, it's like, what? You're going to go to those? Those idiots don't know what they're doing. It's like attacking his pride. It's just like, it was just kind of interesting that, you know, that got him all fired up. He hasn't actually gotten any help from, I would assume it was sometime last season or something. He gets help from them on a pretty regular basis. Everyone, like Hacker Collective. I think, wasn't the last time he got help from them? Was that season 4 or was that season 5? The whole shaving his head thing was for everyone. That was last season, wasn't it? I could have sworn that might have been the last season. I might be remembering wrong. I think that might have been the last thing he had to do for everyone because they like to make him do embarrassing stuff in exchange for his help, for him getting help from them. Nevertheless, I'm going on a tangent, so. We never actually did get an answer to it. How did she take down someone like Ando? Because she was about to answer, but she didn't. I guess it's a situation of... maybe it's because she was a trusted ally, so he kind of let his guard down, potentially. I don't know. Maybe that's just kind of what it was alluding to, but I don't know. Like, we never actually got an actual answer to that. Maybe it's just kind of like, oh, at the end, it's not that important, so. But another side of this episode dealt with Gregson. He ends up finding out that Hannah is actually an alcoholic, that she's actually been dealing with it for years, which you can understand why that hits him so hard, because it's like, for him, it's like, I literally didn't see the signs. I thought like, oh, you've asked me like yesterday, it's like, oh, Hannah, she's fine, she's doing great. It's like, no, like she's been dealing with this entire time and he just never knew about it. Like, Hannah's, like, had problems come up in the show before, but, you know, I guess it's kind of been an underlining issue that's just recently popped up that she's willing to admit. Because I think, you know, also as the daughter of a, like, cop, like, you probably feel even more embarrassed about it, too. Like, the last person you would want to go to is your dad, but I guess it's just kind of like part of the 12-step program coming up, you know, telling people about the situation. Initially, only Joan knew, but she eventually told Sherlock, which obviously, him being in that similar situation, he ends up talking to Gregson about it, which obviously Gregson wasn't all that happy about him, you know, because obviously him and Gregson are on good terms and everything like that, but it's like, you know, Sherlock did, like, he's like, yeah, we might be on our bad terms, but obviously I do, you know, hearing about Hannah's situation does, you know, it upset me, too, because it's like, the fact of the matter is he knows what she's going through, and it's like, I understand what you're going through. You're thinking through your head like, oh man, it's my fault, I missed these signs, but he's like, what you need to do is not make it about you, which is like, obviously I know, it's like, yeah, you can know it, but it's still that situation of because he's like, even with being the terrible father that my dad is, it's just terrible person in general. One thing he actually did right was not make my situation, my sobriety, about him. It's like, that's what you have to do with Hannah. Make it about her. Like, you'll get so caught up in it, all the stuff you miss, like whether or not like it's something that's genetic in your family. Maybe that's where it's like, no, like let it focus on her because she's all that matters under these circumstances, which I'm sure Gregson does appreciate it. Still leaves their relationship being a little rocky, but I think it's always nice to see them kind of taking steps in the right direction. So. And really quickly, I completely forgot about it, the whole, like, when they initially break into the Air Force situation, Jen was like, maybe we should wait till the morning. He's like, why? For it to be full of people? Then the Air Force kicks in, you're under arrest, get down on your knees. And then, like, Sherlock, like, okay, Watson, you are so right, we should have waited. And she's just kind of looking at, I love it, just hard cuts to them, like, Gregson opening the truck, and they're there, handcuffed and everything, and it's moments like that where Watson is just like, I wish I could just kick your ass, Sherlock, just because it's like the situation you put us in. I literally warned you about doing this. It's so funny because it's just like, he constantly does stuff like that, and it kind of backlashes in his face. You think he kind of learned, but it's like, hey, to be fair, like he said, it's not like he really knew it was a military place, because it's not like there were any actual signs. So, but going back to it, the Hannah situation takes a very interesting turn when we have Michael popping. Like, it's like, oh, some guy's waiting out, like some guy hit your car. At first I was like, oh, like Sherlock's going to show up and talk to Hannah himself. I thought that's what it's going to be. It's like, oh, some guy hit your car. I was like, wait, who? And it's like, wait, it can't be freaking Michael. I was like, what? I was like, no! I thought that's what it's going to be. He's setting up this whole situation. I was like, oh my God. Because I thought the whole plan was like, because obviously he goes to meetings. I thought she does too. All those meetings are the same because it's like, as long as you have addiction. So I thought, I would assume she's going to meetings, but maybe not to the same place. But it's like, I figured maybe that's how he ended up tracking her down in the first place. Like, he followed her from a meeting or whatever. Or maybe he's just very good at what he does. And to be fair, he was able to track down Sherlock, using his own company. That's at least what he says. I mean, he could have easily been lying about that, where he just actually followed Sherlock. Which, Sherlock's very perceptive. You would have thought he would have caught that. But I mean, maybe that just shows you how good Michael actually is at what he does, kind of doing the whole stalking thing. So it could be that, or he could have done what he did with Sherlock and just looked up her address. I was like, no. It's like, he talked about getting Sherlock's attention. I was like, it's Hannah, especially at the end when he was waiting in his car. I was like, I thought he was going to try and get closer to Hannah first, but then strike. I thought that was kind of what the whole thing was. But it's like, I was like, no, that sucks. That's going to suck so much. But it's like, no, it turns out it's not Hannah who's the victim. It was Hannah's friend. Basically, because I thought the whole point was to kill Gregson's daughter. That way it gets even closer to Sherlock. But it's like, nah, this way he keeps the situation adjacent to Sherlock, because this is someone that's important. This is the daughter of someone that's important to Sherlock. So that's kind of the main. Well, I'm sure because it also helps it, because it's important to Gregson, he'll get Sherlock on the case. So it kind of feeds into what he wants, which is just so interesting. Like, he did talk about getting his attention. It's going to be interesting when the time comes out, because Hannah is a loose end, because if it ever comes out that, her and like, I met Michael, and then Sherlock might be like, wait, that's a little suspicious. Like, you meet Michael and then, well, because she will admit, I don't know if it'll correlate in her head to think about that. Like, this random new guy in my life is actually some serial killer that just killed. Like, I don't know if that's going to come out and come up. Like I said, I'm still not 100% knowing what his motives is. I still feel like it's got to be a situation of like, like he wants a cat and mouse. Like, he wants to motivate Sherlock, like Sherlock motivated him to kind of get back into the swing of things. Like I said, Polly might not have been his first victim. There might have been many subsequent over the years, and seeing Sherlock in his rut. So it's like, hey, pal, I'm commit a couple murders and get you back into the swing of things, move past your whole condition right now. So that's very interesting. Like I said, I was scared for a second. That still kind of sucks, especially everything Hannah's going through right now, to kind of have that on top of things. So it's definitely going to be interesting seeing where the next case is going to take us, because I'm sure that that's going to be involved. But I wasn't expecting that. It's better than the alternative, because it would have sucked if it was Hannah. But I mean, who's to say eventually down the road he won't get a little more drastic and actually make it even more personal? That's what I'm kind of getting the inkling. Like, when this is all said and done, it might end with like Joan being a target, just because like she's the person that's the closest to Sherlock, and maybe he'll feel like she'll be kind of the biggest motivation for him to kind of move past everything and get in the swing of things. I don't know. I'm curious to see also like him going forward through the rest of the season. Will he just be kind of popping in and out of Sherlock's life, or will he kind of reveal himself early enough on and he kind of disappears for a while, just popping in and out of Sherlock's life? It's like, oh, I've already revealed myself as the villain, and he, like, to Sherlock and everyone else, and he's low key like leaving signs here and there for Sherlock to find him, kind of almost like some game. You get what I'm trying to say? I'm curious to see what his approach is going to be for the rest of the season of this whole situation. We would just have to wait and see. I'm very excited to see how that all plays out, see what the next episode has in store for us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good